I decided to go to the doctor and went for a physical. Everything was great. Blood pressure great. Everything's good. My weight was probably at that time just about 200, maybe a little under 200.
So you lost you lost quite a bit of weight.
Lost quite a bit of weight. And doctor's like, you're in great health, looking good. And I said, keep it up, keep exercising, doing what you're doing. And I said, well, I had already scheduled the colonoscopy, which I'm so glad that I had already scheduled it, because knowing me.
After you get that clean bill of health.
After I got the clean bill of health, I
don't need it.
Probably would have said, hey, everything's good, well, I'll do it down the road. So went in for colonoscopy a few weeks later, went in on November 29th. My wife took me to, the clinic, and doctor went in, we did the colonoscopy, and he came back to the room, and he's like, we've got something to talk about here. You've got a tumor in your colon, and I want you in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock.
Welcome back, everybody, to our Rest, Eat, Move podcast. Matt and I have been a little delinquent for the last few weeks. We've had a couple changes in our business. We've hired Rashawn. You're going to see him more. We love this guy. He's got a great energy, so we'll get him on camera and we'll get him introduced and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of cool things coming up. The holidays are here. My daughter Kristen's got a gifts in the kitchen on Thursday, which it's already be passed by the time you listen to this podcast. But lots of fun stuff going on in Ontario Living. We love our team. We just had our team meeting. We went and did axe throwing and go-kart riding, and I got to tell you, I didn't probably do very good in the go-kart riding, but we had a good time. But today's podcast, and we've been trying to get together for a while, is with Nathan Groff. And I met Nathan. He works at State Farm. He has his own agency. But I met him a couple years ago speaking up in Traverse City, Michigan. And he's got a very interesting story. But one of the things I love talking to Nathan is that he just has this passion for life. And he's got a lot going on in his world. He switched careers in his mid-50s. And then he had a couple curveballs thrown at him in his early 50s. So anyway, I want to thank Nathan for making the trip in. I'm glad we finally connected. So welcome.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Yeah, I'm glad to be here.
And I want to kind of begin, just kind of take us back in time a little bit about, you worked at the hardware with your dad. So take us back in time a little bit about your career, talk about your family, and then I got a few questions to ask you as we go down this journey of yours.
Sure. I'll be glad to. I started out live in Oxford, Michigan. My family's lived there for nearly a century. So we've got strong roots there in Oxford.
So you're a Michigan guy.
Michigan guy.
Right. We like the Michigan people.
Yeah, for sure. So, my dad was in the retail business. My family was always in retail from, the early 1920s all the way through until about 2010. Finished off in the hardware business. My dad and I had a couple locations in the Oxford, Lake Orion area, as well as one down in South Lyon. Then 08-09 time came, a little bit of a tough economic, time in Michigan and in our industry.
Sure.
As well. So at that time, my dad decided to retire, and he retired out to Arizona. Him and my mom live out there most of the year, doing really well out there. And I decided, to make a career change. I managed for Home Depot for about 5 years. I worked there, but always had a passion to get back into my own business. That's, I guess it's
so in 2000. So you decided to get out of the hardware business, went to work at Home Depot.
Yep. So about 2010, out of the hardware business, and then I managed for Home Depot from 2012 to about 2017, and that's when I made the transition to State Farm and became a State Farm agent in Waterford is where my office is located, and it's been a wonderful
and what kind of tweaked that interest to go into State Farm?
I have some friends that are State Farm agents, and again, I was looking to get back into my own business. That's I guess after 5 generations of family that have always run their own business, it was our passion to help people, and then State Farm is a great company, helping people.
But you made that
things.
Transition at what age to State Farm? 2017?
Yeah, so it was 17, so I think late 40s, about 48.
Okay, so 48, you're making a career change, basically.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And I was looking for a career that, that I could do for the rest of my life, really. I mean, I don't see myself as being someone that's going to fully ever retire and, you know, move off to Florida or Arizona and
Yeah,
spend
so you
my
saw
days.
this runway and you're like, okay, this is, I have my own gig, and
Yeah.
away we go.
Yeah, and I have some friends that are agents, and they're like, Nate, you'd be a perfect fit for it. You know, you've been around the block a few times, you know things, you know, had a lot of insurance, right? Owning businesses and
Sure.
things like that. So it was something I was really comfortable with. Love to speak to people, love to help people.
Yeah,
so
you're a people
it's
guy,
worked-
so it's
yeah.
been a good fit for you.
Yeah, it's been a great fit, and it's been great for my family.
Hmm.
And it's been a wonderful, you know, with the things that have happened in my journey, it's been a wonderful place for me to be, you know, going through what's happening today.
So tell us a little bit about your family, because you have a busy family.
Yes, I do. It'll take a few minutes, but we'll
It's
go
okay.
through it. So yeah, my wife and I have been married 27 years. Back in November was 27 years.
Congratulations.
I woke up in the morning and I looked over to her and I said, "So how's the ride been?" That was what I said. And later that day, she posted on Facebook. She said, "My husband asked me how the ride's been, and I said like a roller coaster upside down with no seatbelt." So I don't know if she thinks it's likes the thrill ride, but it's definitely been a journey, and we've enjoyed every bit of it. And
That's pretty
we
cool.
We have a great marriage. So
You can
it's-
interpret that a lot of
you
different
can turn it
ways,
a lot of
right?
ways. Yeah, she's not big on roller coasters. So.
If she's
I don't
upside
know,
down
but-
without a seatbelt.
Yeah, no seatbelt. No, but it was definitely a funny thing. But no, we have a great marriage, and we have 5 sons. So my oldest son has his own place, his own house, couple dogs, couple acres of property, and he's works for a large electrical contractor, union contractor and electrician. So my second oldest son, he is a school teacher in Oxford, where
Okay.
we live, and he just got the head lacrosse coaching job there.
Oh, great.
He
'Cause I know you guys are into certain sports.
yeah, in the sports, yeah.
Yep.
Lacrosse is a big one in our family.
Yep.
So he's got the head lacrosse coaching job this year, and he's actually, you'll be happy, he's working on his master's degree at Michigan State. So
Oh, I love that.
he's working on that.
I'm already a fan for that.
Yeah, while he's teaching and coaching, so he's got a very busy schedule. And my third oldest, Jonah, I guess I should give the names. Jacob is my oldest son, Noah, my second oldest, and Jonah, he's in law school at University of Detroit Law School.
Okay.
Just had his last exam yesterday for the first semester of law school.
Good
so
for him.
He finished that up, and Seth's over at Hope College. He's a senior. He's working
So
on
you still got 2 in college.
2 in college. Yep, Seth's
Yep.
a senior, and he's working on biochemistry degree is what he'll graduate with in May.
Okay.
So that's 4 of them. And actually, the older ones are still in college, but on their own.
Right. On their own. They're not on the payroll.
They're not on the payroll.
Love
so.
it.
And then my youngest goes, he's a freshman at the University of Albany,
Okay.
and he plays Division I lacrosse.
So is he the only one out of state?
Yes.
Okay.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah.
Noah went to University of Indianapolis.
Okay.
For college.
All right.
The other 2, and then
And he's playing lacrosse there?
yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So that's the boys are all doing well, and
And Courtney, tell us, just say hey to Courtney.
yeah. Hi, honey. How are you today? She'll be definitely listening to the podcast, and she's been a great support. I mean, just through everything, she's just been a wonderful partner.
He's been a great partner, but it's upside down without a seatbelt, which
Yeah.
is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
all right. So, what again, it's nice to give you a little. I wanted to give the viewers, the listeners, a little bit more of, who are you, and then what we really, how we really met is talk about what happened in your early 50s.
So, with the transition of careers, I was on a more, out walking, helping customers, more physical job, right? I mean, hardware retail, I was active, I was moving, right, on a daily basis. And when I switched over to insurance, of course, I sat all day, and I would sit all day.
Less physical.
Less physical. And I'd go through stretches through my whole life. I was active, played sports in high school, continued to play sports recreationally after high school, was always someone that, would stay in shape. I would, get in shape, and then I would slack off and
Sure.
gain 20, 30
It's
pounds
typical.
back and forth.
Typical of most people, right?
And had a real, family. My sons all did some sort of athletics, a few, at high levels in college, and others, in high school
Mm-hmm.
and continue to be active. So my one son that's at Hope, he took up jiu-jitsu while he's at college, and loves doing that, right? And he played lacrosse in high school, but he found that as a passion, and he's done a few competitions in that. So our family's always been active.
Yeah, you're an active family.
So I became, more sedentary. I, put on some weight, and so I was looking at myself just prior to maybe last July. So it would have been just a little over a year ago, right? We had a family picture. My youngest son, it was his first football game. So it would have been in August, I guess, towards the end of August. His first football game of his senior year. And I looked at that picture of myself, and I'm like,
Not liking it.
I'm not liking it. I'm like, this is terrible. So I started, and I'm the type of person that when I do something, I have to do it
You're going all in.
all in.
Mm-hmm.
But then in turn, I think that's part of the thing I've had to learn, and this has helped me learn, is I used to do that before. I would go all in, and then once I got to where I wanted to be, I would go all out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was
Right. You're
I
not
would
maintaining the
I would
lifestyle.
not maintain a lifestyle. I would do this, like my goal is to do this, and I've been fortunate as someone that could drop weight
Sure.
pretty quickly, and I still
Right.
have been able to. So I, if I was, and my buddies would always say, I can't believe it, and my wife too, like, how do you,
How do you?
you can drop like 30 pounds in a couple months. How do
Right.
you do it? And I wasn't doing it the right way either. I would not eat,
Right.
and
You
things
just-
like that.
right.
So I
A
found
lifestyle you
myself,
couldn't create.
especially at the new job, when I started my office, I'd get up in the morning. It's pretty much a recipe for disaster. I would, get up and I would drink coffee from the time I got up, black coffee.
Yeah, because you said you were drinking how many pots a day?
Oh, I drink almost 2 pots of coffee a
Almost
day,
2 pots of coffee a day.
and I wouldn't eat.
And you wouldn't eat.
I basically got up in the morning and I drank coffee from the time I got up until I got home from work, and then I would eat dinner and maybe have a couple beers. I mean, I didn't drink beer every night, but I'd have maybe a beer. Maybe
What was
not.
what was the highest body weight you got up to?
So I got up to 248.
248.
248.
And you're at 90 something now?
195 now. Yeah.
Yep. So you're in a good spot right now.
Yeah, for me, that's a good weight. I graduated high school like 186.
Okay.
And, I'm working out at the gym, and I found I did drop down to about 180.
You got a little bit light.
A little bit light, but I can consistently maintain between 190 to 195 is kind of where I sit.
So when you went and you had a physical, and then you ended up getting a colonoscopy.
Yeah.
So let's walk down that path
Yeah.
for a little bit.
So, yeah, this was, so I decided, hey, I'm going to get myself back in shape back in August of 21. So worked
This
out.
was not that long ago.
No, August of 21, a little over,
Right.
15, 16 months ago.
Right.
So I decided I'm getting back in shape, right? I'm going to do this. I lost about 30 pounds from August to November.
Crushed it.
Crushed it, and I did it, and still wasn't probably doing everything perfect. Probably still wasn't getting enough calories, but I kind of got on the path, and I'm gonna crush this. So then I decided I hadn't been to the doctor in quite some time. Fortunately, I never really have had any reasons to go.
Yeah, I'm fine. I don't need to go to the doctor,
Right. Yeah.
but I decided to go to the doctor.
So I decided to go to the doctor and went for a physical, and everything was great. Blood work came back good.
Perfect.
Sugar was a little bit high, but not terrible. Blood pressure great. Everything's good. My weight was probably at that time just about 200, maybe a little under 200.
So you lost you lost quite a bit of weight.
Lost quite a bit of weight. And doctor's like, you're in great health, looking good. And I said, keep it up, keep exercising, doing what you're doing. And I said, well, I had already scheduled the colonoscopy, which I'm so glad that I had already scheduled it, because knowing me,
After you get that clean bill of
after
health.
I got the clean bill of health, I
I don't need it. Right.
I probably would have, said, hey, everything's good. Well, I'll do it down the road. So went in for colonoscopy a few weeks later. Went in on November 29th. Was the day. I think it was a Monday. So went in, and my wife took me to the clinic, and the doctor went in. We did the colonoscopy, and he came back to the room, and he's like, "We've got something to talk about here. You've got a tumor in your colon, and I want you in my office tomorrow morning at 9:00."
So here we are, November
November 30th.
30th.
Which when Oxford was a tough day, for our community as well.
Right,
with
with
what
all the-
happened in the community there. So that morning,
You're in the-
diagnosed with
Stage 3.
stage 3 colon cancer. So we leave, the office pretty much in shock. My wife, I'm sure, was,
You're probably shocked. You're like, what the heck? I get this test. I'm in a clean bill of health, and I walk out and come back the next morning, and here we go.
Yeah. So, November 30th, the doctor said, we went in, and he's like, you got a tumor. We're going to go in, and we're going to, have to cut out part of your colon, right? So,
And that was what, December?
So, yeah, December 15th.
December 15th.
So they had
2
me in
weeks later.
2 weeks later, they had me in, and they did the surgery. They took out multiple lymph nodes, 20-some lymph nodes. One lymph node was bad. The rest were okay. And they knew when they did it, they didn't get a clear margin. They mentioned that. They're like, hey, looks good, but, when they did the testing, they know that they didn't get a clear margin.
Completely clear.
Not completely clear. So, went home, started to recover from that, and then December 23rd, my mother-in-law passed away in her sleep. So, it was
You had a rough month there.
Rough month there for sure. So my wife did. So we had that hurdle that we were looking through, and then of course we started chemotherapy. Doctor referred me to an oncologist and met with him. Video meeting with him, and then we started chemotherapy in probably end of January.
So not much longer after your surgery.
No,
A month later.
About a month later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do how many treatments of your chemo?
So I initially did 3 chemotherapy treatments, and then they did a scan. They did a CAT scan to look, and there was no masses at that time. They were looking at a couple other things they wanted to see from the initial one, just to make sure there was, a little speck that they saw, on my liver, and they wanted to make sure, but it was nothing. It was just some sort of growth that anybody, could have. It was nothing of consequence, but they wanted to.
And when you're going through chemotherapy, had you started changing your lifestyle at all?
Yeah, I did. I had started, and I'm so glad, and that's one of the things I want to talk to people. Don't wait till tomorrow. We talk about this, I'll start tomorrow, I'll do, I'm so glad I started 3 months before I found out about this. 2 things, I had lost some weight. I think it would have been tremendously harder to recover from that surgery, having 30 or 40 pounds more weight. 'Cause I carried it. I mean, I sent Chris the pictures of what I looked like, a few months before I started chemo and what I looked like at the end. And it would have been tremendously more difficult carrying that 30, 40 pounds on my gut, cutting through
By
there
looking
and
at
doing
that photo,
surgery.
got you going.
And it got me going. So I'm so glad I did that. But yeah, I did change, and I really dialed in. Everything I did was about caring for my body. And, completely changed what I did. And I started tracking everything I ate. I'm on almost 340 some odd day streak
Of keeping track.
every single thing I've ate, and every weight myself every day. If we're out of town, I go down to the hotel gym and I weigh myself there and put it in my phone.
You're paying attention to your metrics.
And I'm looking at what I'm eating. It's helping me decide, number one, the right amount of calories. And that was one of my downfalls, was because, again, I didn't eat all day.
Right.
I put a bunch of food in at night.
Yeah, you're eating like a sumo wrestler, and you're doing the 2 pot and a half of coffee a day or more.
Totally quit coffee. I haven't drank since. I actually had stopped drinking coffee back even before, again, that August time frame when I decided to do this. I haven't had any coffee. I think maybe I've had a cup of coffee, maybe 1 beer in the 1.5 year period. It just, I'd did that before, and I just track everything that I eat.
So you're cruising along, you're doing really well, and then all of a sudden, what happens next?
So I had that scan after my 3rd chemotherapy treatment. Looked like everything was good. We've got 9 more treatments, was the regimen. I found some things out. During my chemo treatments, I found some some products that I would wear these gloves, mittens that were ice mittens. I mean, you basically look like an oven mitt, but they're gel packs.
Because of the neuropathy.
Because of the neuropathy.
Yeah, which people don't understand sometimes going through chemo, it can damage your, receptors, which creates neuropathy.
Yep. So those were my biggest concerns was the neuropathy. And then, mouth sores and getting cold sensitivity in my mouth. So I went for my first treatment and I came home and I opened the freezer and took something out and I'm like, this isn't bothering me. They're telling me that cold's going to be a big deal.
Not a big deal for you.
Well, then the next day I got up, opened the freezer and grabbed something and I was like, holy cow. I mean, I had to drop it and I'm like, man, my hands, I could feel that tingling. Drank something cold, you're not thinking, drank some cold water and my mouth's tingling and I'm like, man, so I wanted to know
this is real.
Researching.
Yeah.
Is this going to last forever? What's the deal? So I did some research and I found these gloves that are basically gel pack mittens and these socks that are gel packs, like you'd put on a wound or whatever, or if you sprained an ankle.
Right.
And then I chewed ice chips the whole time I was on getting chemo. So my wife would go.
It's like a training.
The minute chemo started, they do the pre-meds. And then as soon as chemo would start, I'd put these gloves on, put these cold socks on, and my wife would sit there because I had mittens, I couldn't do it. She'd sit there and shovel ice chips in my mouth for 2 hours. And I had no more neuropathy, none of the cold sensations.
And that's one of the things I wanted to make sure everybody understood, that you kind of took it on yourself to kind of, let's research, let's get more involved in my health.
Yeah.
And you did some of these things on your own. They actually trained you to have less or no neuropathy.
Yeah, I got very little bit because when I started feeling that, I'm like, man, I don't like this. And I'm like, I was more trying to set myself up mentally. Is this something I'm going to have to deal with for the rest of my life?
Well, who's doing ice chips doing chemotherapy,
they
right?
Some people, I know they
I
didn't want me to.
I get
but
it.
I'm
You're
like,
saying,
let me try it.
I'm going to give it a shot.
And, let me give it a shot. And it worked. I never had any cold sensitivity in my mouth. I never got mouth sores. But again, I rinsed my mouth out with baking soda and salt water 3 times a day. I did, special mouthwash.
Well, I think what you're doing is you're trying to allow the body to heal itself more naturally.
Yeah.
And you're taking that. So you go through all this thing, and then all of a sudden you get a setback. What's that all about?
So we finished chemo, and my doctor's like, we're going to do a scan. And, final scan when I finished, and then hopefully take my port out. And
what's the timeline then? It's from the beginning of chemo, which is what, February?
Started last week of January. So I think it's January 27th.
Okay.
I think's the date. I didn't write it down, but I think it is. And then I had my scan the 1st of March when, things look good. And then we went 9 more chemo treatments. So we're at mid to end of July.
Okay, so end of July.
So the doctor orders my scan. We'll do the scan in August. They waited about a month after chemo ended to do the scan. So I get a scan and I go back to the doctor to review the results, which, my mindset's like, hey, I busted chemo. I went to the gym. I even went to the gym on chemo day.
Yeah, you're crushing it.
I mean, I did everything I could possibly do, felt as good as you could going through chemotherapy. And I'm just going to be done with this and put this chapter behind me. Well, we go back to talk about the scan. The doctor's like, we got to talk about this mass in your abdomen. And I'm kind of like, well, what are we talking about here? And a mass had grown during that last 9
during
chemo
your
treatments.
chemo.
There's a couple masses, but the size of the masses together was the size of a softball in my abdomen that grew while I was on chemo. So again, leaving the doctor's office, my wife was going to go, and I'm like, nah, I'll just go to work from the appointment. He's going to say everything's good.
Right.
We're on our way. Well, I call her leaving the doctor and say, got some
got
so
some
good news.
bad news again.
And again, it's at that point, it's like you don't know, right? You know that there's a mass there, but you don't.
Yeah, it's uncertainty.
What's the game plan?
Yeah, what's the plan here? Doing everything I can in my power, and it's not working.
Yeah. So they ordered a PET scan to scan, basically from my brain to my toes to see, if there was any other or cancer anywhere else. And they ordered a biopsy of the
tumor.
The tumor. So they went in and did that. And subsequently, my wife, as soon as I called her when I left the office, she's like, hey, I want to get a second opinion from University of Michigan.
So you switched over.
So we switched over to U of M. She called and got me over to University of Michigan. At the time, the test results, by the time I got into Michigan in a couple weeks, the test results were just coming in. So it kind of just
Was a good time.
good timing. Like the doctor had all my results from my test right at the time that my appointment was happening. So it was, we could just go forward.
Right.
And
And this is not that long ago.
no, this was September.
Yeah.
So mid-September, we went to, and again, they're talking about chemotherapy possibly again. They were able to send out the biopsy from the tumor, and we found out that I was
And right now you're
eligible to
doing
do immunotherapy.
immunotherapy. That's what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so I was fortunate enough, because a lot of colon cancer, I guess, immunotherapy is not an option, but it was in the case of mine. Because the cancer that grew was from the leftover cells that they didn't get with the
When you
with the
didn't have
colon
a
cancer.
yeah,
It wasn't a new,
like you said, you didn't have a clear.
yeah, it wasn't a new, it's not a new cancer per se. It's just that, and
Right.
that got loose and in that different location. So
In different locations, Jen, you can do the immuno.
yeah, they were
therapy.
able to do this immunotherapy. So I've had 4 treatments. Next Wednesday will be my 5th. And they scanned after my 3rd treatment, and the masses have shrunk. A couple of them around 30%, and the largest one probably a little over 25%.
So they're seeing good results so far.
Yeah, and I'm having limited side effects from it. I get a little bit tired, and you feel like your immune system's
And how often are you
hard.
doing that?
Every 3 weeks.
So every 3 weeks. And how long does that procedure take?
It's only about 30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm at the hospital a few hours because they draw blood. I see the doctor, and then the infusion is about a 30-minute infusion. Where chemo was almost 3 hours.
Right.
So it's, to me, it's like,
So
oh, this is like.
And so when are you getting told, like, when is this finished?
Well, the regimen is normally 2 years, but it all depends.
How
the
you're-
doctors. It's
Right. It's assess and
how fast does it shrink? If it shrinks away,
right.
maybe they'll shrink away in a year, and he'll do
Right.
so many more treatments after that. There is a possibility they could do surgery and remove it if it got small enough, but if the treatment's working, I hope that's the path that we can keep going.
Absolutely.
I'm not really having any side effects.
No,
of the
you're feeling-
treatment other than tired.
Yeah.
You put your immune system, it ramps it up. So a few days I feel like I'm just getting over something. I wake up and feel like, man, did I just have like the flu the last couple
Yeah.
of days? You just.
Right. It's not quite right.
It's not quite right, but
Yeah.
like today I feel fantastic. And
So walk us through, like, what does a typical day look like? Well, how do you eat? What are you drinking? Give me your lifestyle picture for a day.
So I get up every morning, and again, I weigh myself as soon as I get up every morning. I get out of bed, go in the bathroom, weigh myself, pull out my phone, got an app on my phone, I put my weight in. Then I go down, usually drink wheatgrass.
How many
every
cubes
day.
of that are you doing?
6. I do 6 cubes a day. Some days I'll do
Who
8.
would get you doing that?
Who would get me doing that?
Yeah, who would get you to do
on
that?
Target Living. In our meeting, and I started that when we first met. Again,
Right.
in 17, 18, I ordered some of
Right.
the products from on
So you get up
Target.
there and you do your 6 cubes of wheatgrass.
Yep.
And what do you tell people? What do you tell them it tastes like?
Some people I say it tastes like maybe your lawn or something. I don't know.
It's
I just
fresh cut
it's
grass.
just fresh cut grass.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
like a clean flavor. People ask all the time, "What's it taste like?" I had a couple in here the other day, and I had them. I thought I was giving them, something crazy, and they're like, "Wow, this actually tastes pretty good." I'm like, "Yeah, it's supposed to." All right, so you do the wheatgrass. What else?
So I do the wheatgrass usually first thing, and then I start because I want it to sit for at least a half hour. I try to get an hour, but at least a half hour before I eat anything else. So then once
So
I
you're
drink
like a
that-
poster child about perfection.
Yeah.
Like you're putting that in your body and allowing it to sit, to absorb. I have people like, just whatever I can throw in there, but you're giving yourself time, which is great.
Yeah,
Okay.
I try to do 30 minutes, so I get up.
That's ideal.
I do that, then I'll go and shower, get dressed, do whatever other stuff around the house. Then for breakfast, I usually have like kind of 2 different breakfasts. I mean, like today I had oatmeal, and I put a tablespoon of coconut oil in my oatmeal with a tablespoon of flaxseed and usually 2 or 3 tablespoons of hemp seed. I throw some raspberries or blueberries in it, and I'll have a hard-boiled egg, and then I'll drink my cod liver oil.
God, we love you. This is great.
Yeah, and then I'll take my I always have a hard time pronouncing the
spirulina
tablets.
chlorella.
Spirulina chlorella tablets.
Mhm.
Yep, I take those. And then I drink a tablespoon of magnesium. That's something big with the chemotherapy and some of that stuff is to make sure that level. So I am supplementing with some magnesium just to make sure.
Yeah, because sometimes people don't realize when you're going through therapy, your minerals will be depleted pretty quickly. So that's pretty common.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted you doing wheatgrass in the first place too. But all right, so
but that's my breakfast. So
that's your morning plan.
And if then the next day I'll have, instead of the oatmeal, I'll have I'll maybe have 2 eggs, and I'll either have like Ezekiel bread with some almond butter on it.
It's a good plan.
Like that. So and then I'll have like strawberries.
Okay.
With that day,
Yeah.
and then my daily. Then for lunch, most of the time it's I make a salad with romaine and spinach. Put some walnuts on it. Throw some blueberries or whatever other, whatever berry, blackberry.
Do you take this to work?
Yeah, I take it to work. And then I'll take a banana and an apple. Usually a gala apple, that's just what I take. I try to stay away from the higher sugar apples.
Apples are so good for gut health, so.
So I'm doing a lot of things for gut health, and I think that's helped a lot because I never really got nausea even during chemotherapy. I didn't eat very much the day of chemo, and I was careful of what I ate. Ate a lot of fish around those days because I was having a hard time swallowing, so I was eating things that were
Yeah, you're putting good stuff in your body that easily to break down and absorb. So bananas apples are fantastic for gut health on top of the oatmeal. So Ezekiel bread, all good.
Yep. That's my lunch is usually I'll put chicken on the salad, to get a little protein or whatever, And that's pretty much my lunch. Maybe a yogurt with some the cocoa nibs in there.
Yep, I like that little crunchiness.
Yeah, so I put that in. I'll put that in my oatmeal, and
I was trying to give my grandson came in here this morning because he wasn't feeling very good, and so I had some oatmeal on the run. And he goes, "Grandpa, what are those hard things in there?" And he knows what they are. Yeah. And I said, "Well, those are cacao nibs." He goes, "I just don't like those." So I said, "Smell it." And he goes, "Well, it smells like chocolate, but it doesn't taste like chocolate." So I had to laugh. So
I'll have that usually as a snack, and then at dinner, I'll have whatever my wife's making for the evening, and
she's dialed in.
She's dialed in. We'll have I buy our beef. We buy from a local farm, so I buy a half a cow at a time. It's grass fed. No hormones, everything that they plant. They don't use any fertilizers on their fields. They do everything natural as well. So I don't eat as much beef as I used to, but I still do, and we get it from there. And
so you're not drinking any coffee anymore. What are you drinking?
So I drink
about
a gallon of water a day.
So you're drinking lots of water.
I usually get at least 3 quarts a day.
Okay.
Sometimes I try to get to.
And it helps you keep your body clean, right? So you're doing that. Anything else you're drinking?
I drink 3 cups of tea a day.
Okay,
so I'll usually have a breakfast tea in the morning, like a
herbal tea type thing.
Herbal tea, something like that, and then at lunch, at work, I have a hot water, water machine, and I'll have tea at lunch, and then I'll have a tea usually at night. When I was going through the chemo and the sicknesses and stuff, my wife was making. She'd buy ginger, and she'd slice up ginger and boil it in the stove with lemon. And I'd have a lemon ginger tea at night. Haven't been doing that as much.
But you can, like for me, sometimes if you don't want to do that, that's ideally.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll just buy the, ginger herbal tea, and then you could add some lemon to it. We have little ice cubes and a little local honey. But I think a lot of people, the reason I bring that up, a lot of people, especially in the winter months, think here comes the coffee. Well, there's nothing wrong with having a cup of coffee, but maybe after your coffee, you move into some other herbal teas if you like that warmth and that feeling.
Yeah, that's helped a lot. And I did buy the Keurig cups of they have a lemon ginger Keurig one. I've got those, so you don't have to go through the process.
Again, you're trying to figure out make it simple.
Yeah, making it simpler. But again, at first, you were doing everything. And I'm that kind of that way.
You get that personality.
I'm just gonna do
whatever it takes.
Everything possible.
Yeah.
And coffee, I had a cup. There's a bagel shop that does Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee on the weekends, right? So,
it's a treat.
I went and had a cup once.
But,
I bet you I haven't had, like you said, 1 or 2 cups of coffee.
But even if you did, that's kind of like a treat.
It's not the end. But again, it's one of those things that I'm like, hey, I drink a pot and a half a day. So if I'm, staying away from it, then
Well, the big thing, as we wrap this up, when I first, you and I first met and on the phone, is I'm like, here's a guy that's got this, very busy family, the 5 boys and your wife, and you go from being in this, business with your father, and then you move away from that, and then you decide to come back and do something on your own. So I'm switching careers, and then I get diagnosed with cancer, which was completely out of the blue, and I'm doing everything in my power, and I'm doing great, and all of a sudden I get another, hit in the gut per se.
yeah.
But I want to kind of, as we wrap this up, like, what are some of the key nuggets you'd like to share with people? Because when I started listening to what you were saying, I'm like, this guy is determined. I mean, and so what kept you determined? What kept you? I know you probably had some challenging times. Obviously, you have a really, really great relationship with your wife. But you've had some challenges. So what kept you, driven?
I think it's, with us, it's we're fairly faith-based, really faith-based.
Sure.
I mean, not fairly. We are a faith-based family. And it's, my wife's thing has always been faith over fear, right? And have that hope. And I want to be there. I want to be there for all my son's college lacrosse games, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hopefully someday we'll have grandkids down the road, right? I want to be there and be active with them. And those are things that I do. And the challenge,
So the faith and the hope.
The hope, right? Yeah.
Those are huge.
Yeah. I mean, there is hope. I mean, I went through this, and it's been.
I mean, you look like a picture of health right now.
Yeah, I feel great, and,
right,
and I don't even think, it doesn't. I'm not like, I've got cancer. It's going to do this to me from day one. It's. How do we? What do I got to do to get rid of this?
It's not defining you. It's
it's not. And,
right.
And I'm going to fight through it and go to the gym. Even on my chemo days, I would go, and I just might walk on the treadmill. Didn't go every one, but majority of them I did.
Yeah,
And I'm just not going to let, I'm not going to let it beat me, or if not, I'm sure not going down without a fight.
So what keeps you so motivated?
And I think it's my family, right? I look at them and my sons. How do they perceive me? I wanted to see that and how they. Their life's going to have challenges. Everyone's life has challenges. We all have different things that we have to overcome.
That was a big driver for you to kind of see how you're kind of modeling behavior for your kids.
Right. Because we're all, like I said, we're all going to have challenges, and I want to be strong, for my family and provide for them and be there for them, but show them that, when the challenges come, you need to step up and,
and they need you.
Do your best, and they need me, right?
Exactly. And your wife needs you.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, for sure.
So, again, I kind of know this a little bit, but I think one of the things I want to mention to the viewers and listeners is about the power of support systems. I think the big thing you have with your wife and your kids and your faith and people at work and whatever, but I think sometimes we all think we have to go this route alone. We talk a lot about you don't have to cross any bridge alone. So let's talk about that a little bit. Support system. I mean, one of the support systems is your behavior of, I'm weighing myself. This is my regimen. So you have this environmental support systems that you have it set up, right?
For sure.
And then you take your lunch to work. That's, to me, that's setting up my environment. If I want to drink my water, I got to have my water here, right?
Yeah.
What other things would you recommend to people about support systems and how powerful they've been for you?
Well, they've been huge. I mean, like you said, the family has been tremendous. I mean, having, 5 sons and my wife, there to support me. My parents as well, even though they're in Arizona, and good friends. I have some friends, high school buddy that lives in South Carolina. We don't get to see each other very often. Great friends. His son's named Nathan, from me. And
wow.
His family had went through some cancer, things they've had to deal with in their family. So he's, messaged me, how you doing, Nate? What's going on? And we were, competitive. We were athletes together in high school. So, I'd be telling them, I'm on my way to the gym. Or a day I wasn't doing good and I'd get to the gym and I'd be like, I'm not going to do very much. I'd text him and say, I'm going 3 miles on the treadmill today.
You
I
got
hadn't
this
even got
support
on the
system.
treadmill yet.
Right.
So now I'm like, well, I just told my buddy.
I got to
that
do it.
Now I got to do it.
I got to do it.
I'm doing, because that's a mental thing, right? You've got
Right.
that's a big challenge in this too.
But I think a lot of people, and again, I've never seen in my career the health challenge we've been facing today.
Right.
And I think the point, really a big part of this podcast, is that here's a guy that's gone through lots of challenges, but we want to try to surround ourselves that we're not going down this path alone. Nobody has to do this, right?
Right.
And when we have the faith and we have the hope and we have the support systems, I think people feel like, oh, okay, I'm not doing this by myself. No. There's so many people going through what you're going through, but you don't have to do it alone.
Right. And you need to reach out and look at that. And I did a lot of research on myself, like you said, and it was funny. My wife, when she started grocery shopping and we were going together, because my sugar was a little bit high.
Sure.
Before, now it's great. I mean,
Right. You're all
it's dialed in.
Yeah, poster
But
child.
it was starting to push towards, if I would have continued on that path prior to losing that weight that August, I probably
Right.
been pushing pre-diabetic type,
I mean, you're almost 250,
type stuff. Yeah.
right? Almost 250. Couple pots of coffee a day.
Yeah.
And then I'm just not going to eat. That's how I'm going to lose my weight.
Yeah.
And now I've completely dialed in my whole
Yeah,
lifestyle.
But, so to see that, but then, so we were like, when we saw that, we're like, oh, the sugar's, tipping towards that higher number. Now it's awesome.
Right.
But she's buying stuff and you start like, well, we'll buy this because it's, low in this, or this is whatever. And we think it's not. And you start looking at this packages and it's like,
It's not the source.
this isn't good.
Right.
Like, we wouldn't believe how much stuff. It was so frustrating, I think. And that's where.
And I think a lot of people have, that's, one of those our missions is we're trying to help people be able to create a lifestyle that they can enjoy and pivot. And a big part of that is you have to take ownership, whether it's learning how to read a label, understanding the source, all that kind of stuff that comes with it. So
And I think not being afraid to look for that help and
look for the help.
and do that. It's out there. I mean, there's
Right.
support out there.
Well, we're out there. We're
And
trying to
there,
help.
Yeah, please do. I
Yeah,
mean,
and again, that's the whole thing, and that's why we're doing this podcast today, because I want people to understand. Like a lot of people go through, and I get them many times. They got the severe neuropathy. Well, there's lots of things you can do to improve it,
Right.
and you kind of hit it right at the front end, not at the back end.
Yeah,
So
and I would, and I'm happy to,
Right.
talk to anybody on the journey that I've been on. I'm hoping, that was my, thing with this. If I need to go through this journey and have this,
well, we
if
had
I can help one person.
we had Greg on from State Farm.
Yeah.
And we had his whole story too, and Greg's the same way. Anybody wants to talk, walk him through this thing. He's a Michigan guy. Again, as a listener, as a viewer, if you have any questions, reach out to us. If you want to connect, we're happy to help, because I think that's one of the missions you want to like help others that, you've been through this journey. I'm happy to help you.
Sure, it can be done. I mean,
It can be done.
And, those lifestyle changes, it's now I don't even
It's just what
want
you
some
do.
of those foods. It's what I do.
That's what
and
you
I
do.
eat a lot. I mean,
Right.
I eat 3,000 calories a day.
Right. It's what you do.
Of healthy food. But,
Right.
again, when I go to the gym, I get more calories. So it tempts me to go to the gym because I want to eat more.
But you've learned how to create a lifestyle that now you're thriving versus just, I'm trying to lose weight and,
Right.
that's not going to be healthy for you. So I want to be healthy and the stuff that goes with that.
Yeah, and I feel, I just feel great.
Well,
even going through the cancer, I feel.
Well, that's why when you sent me a couple of your
Great.
photos, I'm like, man, look at this guy. This guy has really changed his life.
Yeah.
And you have. All right, so as we wrap this up, anything you want to share to the listeners, the viewers, before we head into the holidays?
Well, I definitely want to say, happy holidays, to all the listeners, and just don't lose that hope. I mean, in this season, especially during the Christmas holiday season, is, don't lose that hope. Reach out for support, and make the change. Start now. Start small. I mean, I know that's something that you
Yep, we promote.
I'm one that's
That's okay.
jump all the
That's
way.
okay.
But now that it's with what's happened in my life, it's not going back. I mean,
Right.
I'm not going to jump off the
Right.
wagon and say, okay, I lost the weight, I got to where I wanted to be. Now
Well,
I'm
I think
going
the
back
big
there.
thing you said earlier, too, is why do I want to postpone it to Monday?
Right.
Mondays, no, we need to go now, right? And I think that's what you decided. Hey, I'm glad I did it, and now here I am, and it's one step at a time, and how do I build that? And the list goes on. So I really truly appreciate you taking the time and energy to spend with us. I think you're going to help many, many people. I think you're touching people every day. You have an amazing family, an amazing support system, and that's kind of what I wanted to bring out. And you did a heck of a job sharing that. So thanks for spending the time. And everybody, happy holidays, and we'll see you next week. All right, take care.